Opto Info back with another weekly video. Today we got a cool case I was excited about. This was a patient that was referred to me for a dislocated IOL and presumably secondary to a break in the capsular bag. Let's take a look at it here. Got a good look in clinic, didn't see any of the breaks, didn't see any breaking of the equator, but that had to be the issue. So my plan initially was I'll just explant it, put it in a sulcus lens and optic capture it, but Dr. Filatowski, I talked with a bunch of people about this, everybody about it. The more the merrier, right? Filatowski is the first one to say, oh, nothing's wrong with that lens, just reverse optic capture it. And so that's what we're gonna do here. And I watched a ton of videos from Brian Kim and Shannon Wong. They do this a lot for negative dysphotopsia or IOL exchanges post-YAG or you name it. Anyways, the things they didn't comment on were the wounds quite as much and the OVD, you know, so I'll make mention of a few things that I felt like weren't touched on in those videos online. So I made my paras slightly bigger than 1 millimeter because I want to be able to burp out OVD, because you're using a lot, you're putting in a lot, so your pressure is going to be sky high if you don't manage that. So there I am burping out some more. I'm constantly putting in some in, making that wound a little bit bigger, constantly putting some in, taking some out, managing the pressure here. Okay, so I was glad to see that the IOL dissected off the bag as well as it did. It's 10 months out from his primary surgery here, and the haptics too. This is the J&J lens, J&J iHance. So in that top, you know, the nasal, this is a right eye, so that nasal haptic came free pretty easily. I didn't feel like I had to dissect with OVD. Oh, but see, there's traction there temporally. See the temporal haptic? It's got traction on the bag. So that temporal haptic was not quite free. So I go in with more viscoat and I'm able to pop the bag open and free that haptic right there, just opened up. And you know, I didn't feel like I had to dissect the anterior and posterior leaflets of the bag all the way to the end of the haptic, rather just the junction and maybe halfway down the haptic, and then it was sort of free to move about the cabin. So now we're free, but we got a reverse optic capture. So I lift up the inferior optic, the edge of the optic, and figured, okay, I'll just slide it up over, but that didn't work. So now let's try some forceps. I'll hold one edge anterior to the rhexis and then grab the other, but the angulation was too much. I couldn't grasp it with the conner. So then I go in with 2 choppers. Dr. Ducker calls this Pringle'ing the lens. I love that. So get a good purchase with 2 choppers, pringle it, lift it anteriorly, keeping it pringled, and then sort of release it 1 chopper at a time, and finally it's captured. I struggled with this. This is highly edited. I'm pretty sure it's sped up too. The case took me like 45 minutes to an hour. So it was captured, but it didn't capture as much of the optic as I want. I want everything but the optic haptic junction to be anterior to the rhexis. So here I'm pushing the rhexis posteriorly so that the optic is overlapping the rhexis to a larger degree, make it more secure. And you can see it here. I point out that the haptic-optic junction, you can see the rhexis over top of that, and then it converts and goes back behind the optic there, right there, all the way across to there, and then down inferiorly on that side too. Those J&J lenses can be difficult to see your rhexis because of that border, that like shadow border that they have. Anyhow, so now we got it to deal with the OVD. I didn't get the OVD. Right there, I just tried to pull it out manually with my cannula. It didn't do a dang thing. So I decided to go in, do some dry aspiration here. That's the aspiration from the bimanual IA. And I decided I'm gonna do infusion manually with BSS and just sort of do this cautiously. Just do it slowly, taking my time. You know, Dr. Shannon Wong is big on warning you about, and Dr. Ike Ahmed, going in with infusion when you don't have an intact posterior capsule and you're just reverse optic captured. You got to be careful not to, for the infusion, to push the lens back into the bag and potentially into the posterior segment, depending on the status of your bag. So careful not to make that mistake. And AC shallowed, you know, started to shallow on me there quite a bit, and but the IOL didn't move, so that was good. You know, confirmation, evidence of good stability there. Stayed optic captured. So here I am hydrating the wound. I put it in a little myostat. I didn't care to bring it down a ton right now. I just wanted it to come down overnight. That is super diluted kinolog. Don't see any vitreous. Shouldn't have any vitreous prolapse. The AC was full of OVD the entire case. So up into the point where it was reverse optic captured, and then you have a barrier. And yeah, so 3 pairs, slightly larger than 1 millimeter each, and it doesn't really matter which OVD you use. I use primarily viscoat or dispersive. Here's post-op. The IOL is well centered. The arc, obviously, the dystopsia is totally gone, and more so than that, subjectively his vision is clear. And that was the main thing, because the dystopsia was just intermittent, but the blurred vision was constant. I think he was like 20/30, 20/40 post-op day 1 here, but he had a lot of dryness and some other things, so I think it'll improve further. But anyhow, just wanted to touch on those few things and say thanks to everyone who gave you advice on how to approach the case. Alrighty.